Is poetry the solution to our contemporary crisis of attention? The Russian literary critic Viktor Shklovsky might think so. In the essay Art as Device, sometimes translated as Art as Technique, the literary critic proposes a consideration of poetry that attends to its power to de-automatize our modes of perception. The essay starts by considering what imagery means. Shklovsky examines what some think of as the definition of art. For some, poetry amounts to thinking in images. However, he proposes there's more than just images to understanding the complexity and purpose of verbal art. The essay recontextualizes imagery as not the primary and singular most dominant aspect of poetry, but rather as one figurative tool amongst many. The essay then pivots to an interesting assessment of habitualization. Shklovsky writes, habitualization devours works, clothes, one's wife, and the fear of war. And what he's trying to convey in this line is the idea that habitual encounters with a thing rob it of its novelty. And in the loss of novelty, we lose our ability to sink into attention and presence with that object, or loved one, or even feeling. And so he writes, and so in order to return sensation to our limbs, in order to make us feel objects, to make a stone feel stony, man has been given the tool of art. The purpose of art then is to lead us to a knowledge of a thing through the organ of sight instead of recognition. By estranging objects and complicating form, the device of art makes perception long and laborious. The perceptual process of art has a purpose all its own and ought to be extended to the fullest. Art is a means of experiencing the process of creativity. The artifact itself is quite unimportant. So basically, and apologies for this long quote, but basically what Shklovsky is saying here is that yes, a piece of art is important, but really what's more important is the ability of art to throw a wrench in what's automatic about our relationship with the world and with ourselves. He then uses Tolstoy as an example and describes the particular way Tolstoy's prose enacts defamiliarization, or this process of making strange. And in this summary of some of Tolstoy's most successful moments of defamiliarization, he writes, the author's purpose is to create the vision which results from the de-automatized perception. Thus, it goes on to differentiate between defamiliarization in prose and in poetry, and focuses on the roughening of language that refuses systemization or any sort of ordering that occurs in poetry. You might be wondering what any of this has to do with our contemporary attention issues. One concern that seems repeatedly voiced in relation to AI is the idea that lessening friction actually causes a lot of issues for our cognitive abilities. And so in a time when so many of us are dealing with brain rot and other feelings of cognitive decline in response to the ease of our consumption of information, perhaps poetry, with its ability to roughen up our relationship with language, is just the thing to break phone addiction. And so I wanted to pair this consideration of art as device with a little craft with something I'm doing to help me manage my screen time. So the way this craft works is you first find a book that you think would make a good size for containing your phone. And then you go ahead and cut out a square the size of your phone inside the book. Now, I chose a book that is filled with photographs that I could use for other art projects like collaging, and it also made the process of cutting out the pages rather meditative because I got to look at each of the images, really take them in, and this process leads to you having a a place where you can store your phone when you're not using it in your bedroom. So this came out of the feeling that I had that I often treat my phone like a journal, and I wanted to give it a space in my room more like what I would give to a journal or to a book. So I created this idea of a phone safe. So it's a way to personalize the place where you put your phone when you're not using it, and also to kind of emphasize the power and importance, to recognize the power that going on your phone has. So it's sort of a way to defamiliarize your relationship with your phone, to remind yourself that this is a powerful tool that holds information, connection, reflection, and so much more. And really what this phone home does is it gives me a place where I can fold up my phone, where I can be offline. It's like having it in another room. You can even put the phone home in another room if you so desire, but overall the purpose of this craft is to pour time and intention and energy into creating something that will help you manage your relationship with a tool, a powerful tool, and treat it as that. Just a tool, just a portal that you get to unlock. And so now, just while I show you these last few clips of me creating the phone home and then a quick glimpse of how it functions in my room, I want to read you a little snippet from a poem that really does this work of defamiliarization for me. It's from Listen to the Golden Boomerang Return by C.A. Conrad. A potato born by shovel, I am a bride of poetry in my orange and purple gown, an unequaled extinction machine pushing strollers through ecosystems of concrete and plastic. We camel through the journey with our new playbook for where plunging hands go. Don't be weird about this. You can be a bride of poetry too.